Thank you for letting us join you this morning. Chris and I are here representing the Lebanon TPA Transition Committee, and as you know, since June, our committee of 6 have gotten together to basically set the foundation for the future of the next Lebanon TPA. And through a lot of different meetings, we had focus groups and we had a public forum, and we've been working on bylaws and a lot of different things. But we come here today to present to the commissioners the slate for the next TPA board. So you have that document in front of you. If you like, I can go through it by name. Okay. The first we have, always will be a permanent seat for the county commissioner. Then we have Josie Ames, and she will represent the retail sector. She's the owner-president of the Annex Division of Ames Sales and Services. We have Rochelle Arnold, who is the current owner of Cornwall Inn and also a manager at the Bluebird Inn. Philip Feather, he is a retired attorney, and he has a history also with the
Union Canal.
Yeah.
Historical Society.
Exactly, Historical Society. And Dana Lape, he is a great individual that will represent the agricultural side. He is employed with Binkley and Hearst. Ray Millay will join us from Lebanon Broadcast Company, WLBR WQIC. Janice Morrissey is the president of the Historic Preservation Trust of Lebanon County. Warren Parks, Lebanon County Historical Society, he will represent. We have Tom Siegel representing the Lebanon County Expo Center. Stephen Summers, he'll represent Cornwall Iron Furnace. Ken Spatz, he will join us representing the Historic Schaeferstown Inc. And Pam Chakama, who is joining us today, is also representing the Lebanon Chris Kindle Market. Jill Weister is the current office manager of the PA House of Representatives with currently Rosemary Swanger. And Bunny Yinger is the owner of the Berry Patch Bed and Breakfast. And then we are leaving an additional seat open for another hotel that we have contacts out, we just haven't received confirmation. So that is the 15-seat board, and then we do have a list of ex officio representatives that there will always be someone from the Lebanon Valley Chamber of Commerce, the Lebanon Valley Economic Development Corporation, Palmyra Area Business Association, the Community of Lebanon Association, as well as someone from the city, ideally the mayor.
Cool.
So that's who we have. And I personally spoke with every one of these individuals, and everyone is extremely excited and honored and very much looking forward to serving our community and enhancing the tourism efforts.
I think that you guys did a swell job.
Thank you.
I do have one question. I know that Commissioner Ames, and I admire this so much, refers to his lovely wife as his bride or something of that nature. And you know, and Josie is such a swell woman and
She is.
very astute when it comes to business and things like that. But I also am aware of the public trust and the appearance of a conflict of interest. And I know on the one I received yesterday, it does list Commissioner Ames, who is the current liaison for the TPA. And so I'm thinking, is there any possibility and consideration given to perhaps, if Commissioner Ames is on the board, waiting until he might rotate off and then appointing Josie to the TPA board so that we can remove any appearance of a conflict of interest? Is that a possibility?
It could be a possibility. I'm sure everything's a possibility. But we discussed as a full committee that there really is no true interest of conflict, because there's something regarding salary, or if you want to elaborate too.
Yes, Madam Chairman, if I can, in the true sense of the word, now, is there a lawyer in the room?
Yes.
Never mind. In the true, I completely understand appearance versus an actual conflict, which I think is what you're saying. In situations like this, we looked at two things pretty specifically. First of all, I don't think there's a real way for the board to be able to affect the commissioner or that person financially. So that's the true real conflict. The individual's not employed by the TPA, so if Josie was sitting on the board and voting on his salary, that's clearly a conflict of interest, which I understand. The second thing is, when we looked at possible individuals, we looked at people who would work, who were pillars in the community, who were very strong stakeholders, and from the retail sector, we saw her as a very, very strong advocate. And I think, if I may say, with Commissioner Ames, he was a strong advocate.
Absolutely.
And of course has also the same network of stakeholders. So we wanted to look at an inaugural board that could really make it work. So that's where our recommendation came from. And we did look at the conflict of interest and we felt, I'd have to defer to some of you really went to law school, but we felt that it wasn't a conflict just because of the personalities and who they were, you know, because we believe in them, I guess, really.
And if you look at also Mrs. Ames' background and her history with tourism, she really has been active and very involved.
I don't deny that.
Right.
I just wondered, you know, if she would be on the board, Commissioner Ames would be on the board appropriating the funds that the county provides. He has that dual role.
Mm-hmm.
And then if, and I don't know this for a fact, if Mrs. Ames would be on some of the other boards, maybe CLA or PABA, something like that, it just gets kind of intertwined in the public's mind, and that's where that appearance of conflict of interest may enter in.
I would, if I may, I would counsel that in that situation, if either one felt that there was an appearance, they could always recuse themselves when it actually came to the vote, or even recuse themselves from.
Well, that would be a compromise, but.
But because I really truly feel that they have such a history and an interest in it that they're going to make it work, and that's really what we're going to need in the inaugural board, I think, to really make it work. Just my opinion, ma'am. So.
And we did I don't have all the documents here, but the bylaws and the code of conduct and the code of ethics that will be requiring for the board to sign and participate in. There is some language in there that, you know, recusing or not going into an area that would be a conflict of interest. So I don't know how to fully address what the public may or may not perceive, but we feel comfortable coming to you today and having the slate as here
Recommendation.
approved. We do.
Yes, ma'am.
We do.
Accept a motion.
Sure.
I'd like to accept the slate as presented, and thank you very much for all that you've done and your team has done in putting it together. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
After hearing your concerns, Madam Chairman, I would withdraw from seconding the motion and voting on this. I honestly feel that you're off the wall with your comments. There's no one that serves on more boards in this community and might have a conflict when it comes to appropriating county funds than you. So that there's no appearance that there's anything wrong here, I put this in your hands.
I would really like some time to think about this a little more. I only got this late yesterday and was not aware that Josie was an applicant. Maybe I missed it on Kathy's sheets. I apologize for that. But I wasn't aware she was an applicant. And
Excuse me, she was the first applicant.
was she the first one?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I didn't remember that. I just need a little time to think about this, so.
Before we would, I think, adopt the bylaws and then submit for a 501c6 application, we need to have a complete board of bylaws to submit for the application for the IRS to approve our nonprofit status. That's kind of, we're in a little, just limbo state right now, so we're waiting for things to fully come together. We've reserved the name with the state, but otherwise, I know there's been a draft set of bylaws you all were working on, but we were otherwise just waiting for everything to kind of come together at one time and then move forward with the complete board.
And I only ask that just from a time frame.
May I just make another comment? I just would like to verbalize my frustration with this delay. I think this is a stellar slate that you've presented. We've seen the names for a long time now. I just am shocked that we can't move forward with it today. And I would ask Commissioner Litz to reconsider seconding my motion.
Again, if somehow we could make sure that we don't have two people from the same family on the board at the same time, especially ones in positions with voting on the funding and things, it just feels like the potential for a conflict of interest that the public would perceive. That's my only question. Pam, you have a question?
Well, if I understand the way this is going to work, the commissioners are going to allocate a certain amount of money to the Tourist Bureau Board. So everyone sitting on the Tourist Bureau Board is going to be voting on where the funding's going to go. every one of us sitting on that board is a part of, I mean, I'm a part of about 4 different organizations that are going to benefit from the things that the Tourist Bureau does. So there's going to be situations where I'm going to have to be careful how I vote. And it, you know, if I look at it with Phil being associated with the tunnel and Warren being associated with the Historical Society, all of these agencies are going to be approaching this committee for funding. So I think pretty much every one of us is going to be in the same position that Josie would be in as far as being careful about what we're voting for.
So there's going to be a lot of recusals when it comes to votes, perhaps.
Well, I think there's going to have to be. When we're deciding on voting to allocate some kind of funding for the Chris Kindle Market, I'm not going to be able to vote on that. I'm president of that committee that puts that together. So I think we're all going to have to be very aware of that and conscious of which votes we're participating in. And I think you could pick everybody on the list out.
That's why they're
Yeah,
on the
There's
list.
going to be something
Yeah.
from everybody.
Understood. David?
Thank you, Commissioner. I would generally agree with what Chris has stated already and what Pam has stated. I think a conflict of interest in general is a case-by-case analysis and determination. When people would accept the appointment that you all would give them to go on the board of directors here, they accept the fiduciary responsibility to act in the best interest of the board of the TPA. Now, certainly, many people, many of us have multiple hats that we wear in different aspects of life. In their fiduciary duty to the TPA, I think it's important to have disclosure and openness as far as what other roles they might serve, and when there are votes and circumstances that would affect another board or personal financial obligation or benefit they would have, I think they have to disclose that. And then on that individual vote, they should abstain from that vote. So as long as that's out there to the rest of the board, which I know other boards I'm on, the United Way, for example, we fill out a form every year listing all the other boards that we're on, just so it's kind of shared information amongst the board of the United Way to know what other agencies, nonprofit entities, things like that we all represent. So that is out there from the very beginning of the year. But yet on individual votes, it's certainly still appropriate to abstain when there would be a direct conflict of interest. And I certainly recognize your points that sometimes there's a public perception that is not truly a legal conflict of interest, and that's something for everyone to be mindful of. That's fair enough. But as a true legal conflict of interest, I don't see any problem with people within the same family necessarily being on board. Again, I get that there might be public perceptions and things like that otherwise, but from a legal sense, I think what Pam has stated, what Chris has stated is correct, that there's not going to be an appropriation of funds here that either one of them individually could control or direct, or otherwise they would have to disclose certainly if they did have an interest. And if anyone on the board would fail to disclose those things, again, I think they're breaching their duty and their obligation to the board.
You know, you all brought up some excellent points, and hearing your argument, I will second the motion.
Call the question.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Abstentions?
I suppose I'm an abstention.
All right,
Chose
then,
not to vote.
motion carries. Thank you.